Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel Computer Classes by Rachna. We now talk about the perceptron and perceptron training rule in ANN. So if you have not seen my previous video where I've explained different types of neural network briefly, so first go through that video and then come back to this video. So now we are going to discuss perceptron, and to know perceptron we should see how a neural network looks. This is the image of a biological brain, and in this brain there are different neurons. These all circles that you can see are the neurons, and all these neurons that are visible to you, they all are connected to each other through different connectivities in the brain. So all these are the neurons, all the circles that you can see here are the neurons, and they all are connected to each other. And when we make some decision, at that time there are certain set of neurons which are in a connection that get active. So all those neurons which are in a connection, when all those neurons get active, so what is happening? We are making certain decision in our mind. So when we are thinking about something and we are making some decision, we are getting the neurons which become active in a path. All right. So now this is how one neuron looks like, and they are all connected to each other. Certain facts: that what are the number of neurons? The different number of neurons in human neural brain is 10 raised to power 11. Connections per neuron 10 raised to power 4 or 5. Neuron switching time 0.0001 second, 0.001 second. And then the scene recognition time, when our brain visualizes a particular scene and recognizes it, sees a particular scene and recognizes it, that is basically 0.1 second. So that's just for your knowledge sake. So there are different neural networks, and whenever we talk about neural networks, we should know that they are just mimic of the real human brain, which has billions of neurons, and all those neurons are interconnected, and these neurons can be active at a particular moment of time in the brain, and they are involved in processing and transmitting chemical and electrical signals. And you can see the diagram of the neuron here. So we have the input signals which are caught by the dendrites. So these are the dendrites. These portions are the dendrites. This is the nucleus of the cell. This portion is called as the axon, and finally we get the output through the axon terminals. So nucleus, or the cell, also called as soma, it processes the information which is received as an input from the dendrites. All right, axon is a cable that is used by the neuron to send this information further, and synapse is the connection between the axon and the other neuron dendrite. So this axon will be connected to other neurons. So there will be another neuron which is present here. So axon and neuron, next neuron, is connected through a synapse. One neuron is connected to the next through synapse. All right. We now talk about the artificial neuron. So each neuron can be thought of as a mathematical function which is based on a model of a biological neuron only, and it takes certain inputs, and then all these inputs will have certain weights associated with them. All these inputs will have weights associated with them. So it considers the input and the weight, and then it sums them up and then passes this sum through a function. So every neuron will have certain inputs, certain weights. It passes through a function and hence we get the output. So when we compare the biological neuron to the artificial neuron, the cell becomes the node in the neuron, which is artificial. The dendrites are the inputs. Synapse are the weights or interconnections between one neuron to the next. And axon are the outputs. All right. So this is how they are related. Now we talk about artificial neuron, which is based on perceptron. So perceptron was introduced by Frank Rosenblatt in 1957. So he gave a rule which was called as perceptron training rule, which was based on this original neuron. And a perceptron is an algorithm for supervised learning of binary classifier. So what is the meaning of supervised learning and what is the meaning of binary classifier? For those who do not know, there is one type of learning in machine learning which is called as supervised, and other is called as unsupervised. So supervised learning means that we give the data and we also tell the machine that this data has this label. For example, we are putting in images and we are telling the machine that this is an image of a cat and this is an image of a dog. Let's say we put 200 images. So out of 200 images, there might be 150 images of cats and 50 images of dogs. And we are giving the label also, which image is representing a cat and which image is representing a dog. So the machine is learning, machine is getting training of those images along with the labels. And then after feeding those 200 images, I might test 10 images by giving the machine without the labels. So if the machine is able to identify which image is that of a cat and which image is that of a dog, then it has learned through the training. All right. And such type of learning is called as supervised learning. Whereas in unsupervised learning, we just give the images, we do not give the labels. We do not tell which image belongs to cat and which image belongs to dog. And machine itself categorizes the images into like category 1 and category 2. So there are no labels which are given. And that type of learning is called as unsupervised. And there's one more type of learning which is called as semi-supervised. In semi-supervised, a few images could be labeled and other images and rest could be unlabeled. So using the labeled images, the machine will learn, and then machine will label those images also which were not given the label. So such labeling is called as pseudo labeling. So these are the three types of machine learning algorithms: supervised, unsupervised, and semi-supervised. So now moving further, that a perceptron is an algorithm for supervised learning of binary classifier. Binary means when we divide our output into two. For example, it is a cat or dog. For example, whether a disease is present or not. It is true or false. So such decisions are binary classifiers. So this algorithm enables the neurons to learn and processes the elements in the training set one at a time. So what does it mean? We will talk about this, but just first look at this diagram. We have different inputs, from first input to second to third, x1, x2, so on till xm. These are the inputs. And this input will be passed through a function, but before passing through a function, every input will have some weightage. Every input will have a weight. x1 have a weight w1, x2 has a weight w2, so on till xm has a weight wm. So we multiply these weights, x1, w1, then we add them. So x plus x2, w2 plus so on till xm, wm. So this sigma is something which we get as a sum. So the output that we need to get would have this sum plus some bias value, and then this is passed through an activation function, and then we get the output. We have this bias value so that whatever is the sum, even if it is 0, we get some minimum value because of bias. So this bias we have added here. This is a bias, which is W0 into 1. So if it is 1, anything divided by the weight would be the weight itself. So bias is the W0 because anything divided by 1 would be that value itself. So we get this as W0. तो जब भी हम x1 w1 plus x2 w2 plus so on xm wm करेंगे, we will get at least w0. So final sum becomes w0 plus this. So if this sum is 0, even if this sum is 0, we will get at least w0. All right. So let's first talk about the ANN. The ANN have the artificial neurons. Every neuron is a mathematical function which is modeled on working of biological neurons. It is elementary unit in artificial neural network. One or more inputs are separately weighted. Inputs are summed and passed through some non-linear function to produce the output. Every neuron holds some state which is called as activation signal, and each connection link carries information about the input signal. Every neuron is connected to another neuron via that connection link. So what is perceptron? Now if you will read the definition, you will understand a bit that perceptron is nothing but a neural network link which contains computations to track the features and uses artificial intelligence in the input data, and that thing is called as perceptron. So this neural link which links to artificial neurons, it uses simple logic gates with binary outputs. So whatever output we are getting because we are applying certain logic gates. So an artificial neuron invokes a mathematical function. It has a node, it has input, it has weights, it has output, which are equivalent to the nucleus, the dendrites, the synapse and axon. Now, we can say that a perceptron is a type of artificial neural network with a fundamental concept in machine learning, that it has an input layer, it has weights, it has a bias value, it has an activation function, it has output, and it also has the training algorithm. So the input layer consists of certain input neurons which receive input signals from external world and from other layers of neural networks. Weight, each input is associated with a weight which represents the strength of connection between the input and the output neuron. Bias is a term added to the input layer to provide the perceptron with additional flexibility. So we want some minimum value, so we add the bias. Activation function determines the output of the perceptron based on the weighted sum of inputs and the bias term. So common activation functions, there can be 4 activation functions, 3-4 activation functions that we use. We can use sigmoid, we can use ReLU, we can use step function. So there are many functions which can be used. Then output of the perceptron is a single binary value. The output could either be 0 or 1. It indicates one class and this indicates the next class. It could be some decision based on yes or no. It could be cat or dog. It could be whether a disease is present or not. It could be whether the customer will buy the product or not. So all these decisions are the binary category outputs. Then we have the training algorithm. So perceptron is typically trained using supervised learning algorithm. One of the training algorithm that is based on this is perceptron learning algorithm, and it is also called as back propagation sometimes. So during training, the weight and the biases of the perceptron are adjusted to minimize the error between the predicted output and the true output. So what does it mean? So if we are expecting some output and we do not get that output, so that is called as error. So what is the difference between expected output and actual output is the error. And the perceptron training algorithm works towards correction of that error. That whatever output we are expecting and whatever result we are getting, if there is a difference between that, we try to minimize that difference through perceptron training algorithm. So perceptron is simple yet powerful algorithm to perform binary classification task and has paved the way for more complex neural networks used in deep learning today. So we will be discussing perceptron training algorithm in more detail by applying AND function, OR function and XOR function. So just wait for the next video. Thank you so much.